Today on our 2014 Toyota FJ Cruiser, we're going to be installing the Curt T-connector vehicle wiring harness with the 4-pole flat trailer connector. This is part number C55567. So here's the wiring harness that we're going to be putting in the vehicle. The side with the double T connectors, this is going to go over to the driver's side. This is where we're going to pick up our running lights, our brake lights, and our blinkers. We've also got a white ground wire. We're going to connect that with the provided self-tapping screw. We've got our 12-volt power wire. We're going to run that right to the battery, connect it using the inline fuse holder and the provided fuse via the wire that they've provided for us. The green wire, this heads over to the passenger side. That goes in behind the passenger side taillight. And then this is what we're ultimately after, our 4-pole wire that'll have our brakes, our blinkers, our running lights to power our trailer, cargo carrier, whatever we're going to need. Now, all the hardware, some zip ties, some foam tape for securing our box, and the connectors are all going to be included, as well as a dust cap that we'll use to cover the end of the plug and keep it from any kind of corrosion or moisture buildup. Now we're going to remove the jack storage panel here. Any extra goodies we might find in there, just set these aside. We're also going to take out the 5 Phillips screws that go across our rear scuff panel here. And we can use a screwdriver. We got a little trim panel removal tool we're going to use here. And just kind of go underneath that edge. We just want to pry up on it lightly and separate those clips. Once we've got it started, probably just work it over with our fingers there. Then we'll take out the Phillips head screw here and also right here. Now we'll take out the bolts that are holding in our cargo clips. Then we can move on to our subwoofer removal. Now for the subwoofer removal, we're going to be taking this access panel off right there. If you don't have a subwoofer, lucky you, you won't have to be doing the removal of this. You're just going to have those anchor points right behind it like we did on the driver's side. Now we're going to take off this front grille, this cover that goes over the front of the subwoofer here. Looks like we've got bolts and stuff that go through it and hold it in place. Those are just for aesthetics. What we're going to do is just kind of pull out on the top corner, across the top, and then come around the outside here, around the bottom. Now for the removal, we're going to be taking out 1, 2, 3, and 4 10mm bolts. I'm going to put that back in for just a couple of turns there, and we'll let that hold it in place while we get all these other ones out. Now before fully removing our 4th bolt there, we're going to go ahead and separate our connector here. Just uses a little push pin right there. You push that down and just kind of wiggle it on out. Now we'll take our last bolt out, and then our subwoofer should come freely. It looks like here, once we have it rotated out, there will be another connection that we'll want to separate. That uses the same style push connector. Now we'll remove the panel right here behind our taillight housing itself. That's our access panel into our connection points there. We've got the one there on the driver's side and also on the passenger. And then we're also carefully going to pry on our side panels here. You feel just a little pressure clips there. That should give us enough room to kind of maneuver and get our wire up there into place on the passenger side. The driver's side, we might need a little more room. All right, good. That should give us the room we need. We've got some good working area here and also here behind our connections. Now let's grab our harness. We'll route the red, white, and brown, also the yellow and white, up behind our panel. Through our access hole there. Now let's separate our connectors. So we're going to separate the gray connector here. There's a little push tab on the top that we'll need to push down, and then we can slide that rearward. They may need to get something in there to kind of pull out where you press down that tab. You see it come apart there for a little 2-pin connector. Now that's going to slide into our 2-pin female side of our wiring harness. Now before we stick it back in there, let's go ahead and get our other one taken care of here. Now this tab's a little bit harder to get to. It's going to be up here on the back side. Once we get our 3-pin separated, we'll slide that right in too. We want to hear it click and then just give it a little push-pull. Now as far as our grounding point, we've got a ring terminal already installed on our white wire. Now we'll use the provided self-tapping screw. We're going to go right into the body of the vehicle over here. Now once we have our hole started there, as you can see right here, we'll then bring our white wire, the ring terminal, place our screw back through, and then we'll secure it using that hole location. We just tighten that on down, get it nice and secure, and that should give us a great ground that'll last for a long time since it's inside, not out in the elements. Now we're going to reconnect both the 2 and the 3-blade connectors. The 2 goes all the way in there to the gray side, tab up just like that. Once you get it clicked in there, just push and pull on it, make sure it's connected properly. We'll tuck those in and then get our 3 connected. All right, great. Now we're all wrapped up here. Let's just put our access panel back on. We'll start working our wires we need towards the middle. And once we have our red, yellow, brown, and white all connected, we're really just left with the green that's going to go to the passenger side, the black that goes to the battery, and our 4-pole wire that's going to give us all of our lights. Now the 4-pole wire and the black wire can go right outside the vehicle using this conveniently placed grommet right here. As you can see, if we pull that up, we can see right outside, right there. So what we're going to do, cut a little notch in that, run our wires down through, and then just stick it back in. That should give us the room we need. Now before we pass that black wire through, we're going to take that roll of 12-volt wire that's been provided. We're going to unroll a little bit of that off there and pass it right up through that grommet so we can make our connection here topside. Now with that passed through, let's strip the end of it off. We'll use one of our provided butt connectors to make that connection. All right, let's use a little bit of electrical tape. We'll tape that up to give us a little bit of a moisture barrier. Now let's also route our 4-pole out of our hole. Now while it's not necessary, something that I'm going to do just to prevent anything from going in is just take a little bit of sealant, kind of go around those wires where they poke out. Go around where we cut it. Then we can just be extra sure we won't be letting in any kind of moisture or anything. All right, it's not the prettiest, but that should do more than enough to keep any water or dirt, things like that from getting inside the car. We'll figure out a good mounting location for it. Looks like there's a nice flat spot right there. Want to make sure our wires go up over and clear the jack tools, go underneath. Right, it looks like it'll all clear there. We're going to clear off both our mounting location and also the back of our box here. Give a little rubbing alcohol. Once it evaporates, we'll put the foam tape on. Peel that side. Get it right up there where we want it, and push down firmly to get it nice and secure. You see it's nice up there out of the way. We'll still tidy up our black wire here a little bit, run that down. I'm going to keep the butt connector and this tape part inside the vehicle. It's just, feel a little warm and fuzzy about it being in here and not outside. We'll line up the 4-pole wire with that slot in the grommet, and let's get this pushed right back down into place. Now I'm going to use one of the provided zip ties and just go around our group of wires here. This is going to hold them up out of the way and keep them from interfering with our tools or anything. Now we're going to run our green wire on across the rear scuff cover area here. I'm going to tuck it down and run it right along with this black wire loom. If they're going to run a water line across there, chances are it's a pretty safe area for our green wire to go through. Then it'll go right up behind the panel here, where we can grab it out of our access hole. Now let's keep feeding this down under here. We don't want to get it pinched or anything, so get that down under and ran behind there. That'll be perfect. Everything tucked in nice and neat. Now we're going to separate that same gray connector we did on the other side. Pull that out and slide it into our harness just like on the other side there. Once that's in, let's check it. Yeah, feels great. Now we'll put our cover back on this side and reassemble the rear of the vehicle. We'll get our side panels popped back into place here. You feel them click and pop. All of our edges will line up as you see there. It'd be nice and neat. We'll do that on passenger side and driver side. With those back in, let's take those 2 large Phillips screws that we removed. We'll put those back in. And then our scuff panel. And we'll replace the 5 screws that came out of there. And put that back in there where the customer had it. And let's get that awesome subwoofer put back in. Now here on the back side, here and here are 2 alignment pins that we want to slide in the holes there and there. Once we've got that set into place, grab our bolts and start them. All right, now let's tighten those down. Get our 2 connections back together here. Put our fascia cover back on. And then our lower panel. All right. And now the last thing here in the back side, let's get our little cargo hook put back in. All right, we're all wrapped up here in the rear. Everything's put back together. Stick a fork in her, she's done. Now we've got our 4-pole wire that's hanging out of that grommet. We'll pull that right over our hitch here. We'll deal with that in a minute. What we need to do now is get our 12-volt power wire ran up there to the front of the car. Now if we're running our power wire towards the front, I'm going to use a piece of old Airline tubing that we've got laying around. You could use just about anything you want, just as long, you see how flexible that wire is. That Airline tubing is just a little more stiff. So as long as it's a little stiffer than that wire, we'll be able to poke it up there and kind of use it and let it help us run our wires up there where we want them. Now as we run these forward, we want to avoid any moving parts, any major sources of heat, or any sharp metal edges. Like here I'm going to use part of the filler neck for the gas, right there between the filler neck and the vent tube. I'm going to run right over the top of that. That'll give us a good sturdy initial hold point there. Then if we go right over top of the spring, we can see the brake lines running up there. Now those brake lines are pretty delicate, of course. So we're going to try to run right along with those, because they should be ran through a fairly safe spot. We'll just keep heading forward here. Now I've come out in front of the fuel tank area here now, so we'll go over that line and around it. I want to get up behind this heat shield. See how we've got that exhaust tube that runs forward? There's a heat shield that comes all the way up here to the front side and protects those lines as they run forward. So we want to kind of stay with that so we don't have to worry about it. Now my fingers aren't skinny enough to keep it running up above that, so what I'm going to do is use a screwdriver. Just kind of help it poke up on my wire while I push it forward. We'll see it come out right here. And then we're going to head right up again, following our brake lines right over here to the outside. Then we'll run them right up there towards our master cylinder. Now here you can see our push wire did its job. It got up here in the right area where we need to make our connections. Now I'm going to run that right back here along the firewall. There's a few brackets I want to get below. Then we're going to turn this way in front of that fuse panel right over there to that positive terminal. All right, I guess our pull wire's done its job. Let's get it out of here. All right, for our front connection, we need our butt connector, our ring terminal, our 10 amp fuse, and our inline fuse holder. What we're going to do is, at the end of our 12-volt wire, this is a little bit too much. You want to leave yourself some just in case there's been a mistake made, we have to redo something, but we don't want a great deal because we're also going to be adding on about 8 or 10 inches of that. So cut off our excess there. Let's trim back our 12-volt wire. Just strip the end of it. Butt connector there. Those will be pre-stripped. Take one end off that. And then ring terminal. Now before I put the ring terminal on, I'm going to slide this right up underneath our cover here. To give us a really cool way to kind of hide that. All right, perfect. So we're going to connect that right there. Have that tucked down and out. Just need to remove that nut. I also really like to tape up our connections, especially if it's going to be on the outside. This one's going to be under this cover, so shouldn't have too much of an issue with it, but better safe than sorry. Doesn't exactly waterproof anything, but it does act as kind of a moisture barrier. Snug that down, make sure it's nice and tight. We'll pull down that little bit of extra. We bring our cover right back down on there. Now for our excess, you see here, just gonna make a couple of nice small coils here. Just like that. We're zip tie right through there, back around, and then that'll just kind of keep it all nice and compact, but readily accessible if we need it to correct any mistakes. Trim off the excess, slide in our fuse, and then that can just be slid down and either zip tied off to something if you want, or I prefer just to get it down there, hidden out of the way. Then if we need it, we'll know where it's at. We'll just reach in there and pull it out. Now for our 4-pole wire, we'll bring it over here where I want it. I'm gonna use that long zip tie to go all the way around my hitch tube. That's kind of going to provide a good anchor point for it here on the back side of the hitch. Trim off a little excess there. Now what we'll be able to do is just bring this right up and around. We can then take our provided dust cover, bring that right around through the safety chain connection point. Then we just use that cap to hold it up into place and also keep it protected from the elements. Now to test out our plug, we'll first put our ground clamp right on the ground side. That'll make sure that our wire up there is connected. And then we're going to test the brown wire. We should have a constant signal from there. You see our lights coming on steady, that's perfect. We'll next test our left blinker. That should be the yellow wire giving us a flashing signal. Then we'll do the right blinker. That should be the green wire, also giving us a flashing signal. And then we'll test our brakes, which will be a solid signal from both the green and the yellow. Green, yellow. Awesome, we've got it done properly. It's going to complete today's installation of the Curt T-connector vehicle wiring harness with the 4-pole flat trailer connector. Part number C55567 on our 2014 Toyota FJ Cruiser.